Yo, what up, TCK Potters? Welcome back to the program. This is another episode of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast. This is episode 456. I'm your host, Sky Guasco, joined by my great friend, another member of the Commish Fantasy Football Podcast. We'll bring him in just a quick second. But before we do that, for the podcast listeners, if you have not yet tuned in, please make sure to subscribe to the Fantasy Focused Football channel, Fantasy Focus Network on YouTube, and join us every Sunday morning for 3 hours of pregame kickoff. All of your start-sit questions will be answered on Sunday mornings right here on the Fantasy Focused Network with myself, Bobby, Levy, and Buck, and a special guest every now and then as well. So join us every Sunday, 3 hours before kickoff, Eastern Western time, and get your start-sits in. Also, make sure to subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch to Fantasy Focus. You can find me on Twitter at Sky Guasco, and of course, leave a rate and review anywhere you listen to the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast on the Believe Podcast networks. Today, we are breaking down the Week 3 action. We're also going to recap last night's game, which is the Panthers and the Houston Texans. Of course, we're going to talk Christian McCaffrey aftermath, unfortunately, and then we will get into our TCK Listener League veteran and rookie roster debates. And to do that, none other than my good friend Christopher Benevides. And before we even get started, I have to clear the air, man. I've been waiting all season to get you back on here to clear the air and put it set for the record. You and I have been on the show, I don't know, I'm going to throw out 20 times. It seems fair. Actually, probably closer to 40, because we did a whole 2 seasons. So 40, 50 shows you and I have done together on the TCK over the last couple of years. Every single show, I have referred to you as Chris Benevides. Now, just for the record, every time I hear you host your own podcast, which of course I'll let you rep once again to the TCK Potters, you open it with Christopher Benevides and the crew. So please, one more time for the TCK Potters, and mainly for myself, which do you prefer, my man? And don't say it doesn't matter, because obviously it does. And now I feel bad.
No, it really doesn't matter. So a couple of things on that. I like the 3-syllable sort of what would you call it? Sort of like the cadence of my name, Christopher.
It's much more sophisticated too. I'll give you that.
Yeah, it is. And the reason I like it is a shout out to our boy Nicholas Ercolano over at BDGE. He introduces himself as Nicholas. So I like the cadence of the 3-syllable name. But from an actual real life standpoint, my family calls me Christopher, and my friends call me, you ready for it? Benny. It's actually not, it's very few people call me Chris. My friends call me Benny, short for Benevides, and they call Alex Benny and they call Eric Benny. So unfortunately, the three of us on our show, we can't go by that nickname. So we have to go by Chris, Alex, and Eric. It's just short that way. So I'm fine either way, dude. I don't really care. I don't have a preference, but my family calls me Christopher. It's kind of what I grew up on. So,
okay. What does the missus call you, and what does mom call you?
Mom calls me Christopher. The missus calls me Chris.
Okay. So my girls call me Sky or Skylar, of course, when you're in trouble, right?
Of course, yes.
And then mom calls me Sky, dad calls me Skylar. So it depends on who I'm talking about. All right. I'm glad we cleared the air, man. I feel way better. I feel like there's been some tension between us for a while. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Yo, man, it's
over first names.
Yeah, man. So it's so great to have you back, bro. Of course, last week we had brother Josh on filling in. I know we don't need to get into too much of your personal life. They can go check out the Commish Fantasy Football Podcast for all the updates of the new house and everything you got going on. So we'll save it for here. But I know you've been in transit, man. You've been moving. You've been doing a lot of things here before the season. Before we get started, man, what's maybe one takeaway either from your Patriots or just kind of the season overall that you've taken away? We haven't checked in with you yet before we get going. And also before that, please remind all the TCK Potters, and I think you're new to the Fantasy Focus Network that we've joined on with since you've been on. So to anybody unfamiliar, please let them know where they can find the Commish brand, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just for starters, I am Christopher Benevides, Chris Benevides over at the Commish Fantasy Football Podcast. Myself, my brother Alex, and my cousin Eric, we co-founded the brand and really the podcast. And we brought on Josh, who was on last week with you as a writer, contributor. And then we brought on RJ and Brian to really kind of spearhead all of our dynasty content. And then Alex and Eric Alex and Desmond kind of evolved that into the Commish Bet. So we basically have a lot of different types of content that's pushed out on the podcast every week. And then we brought on Andrew and Kelly as writers onto the Commish brand. And they're also kind of guest spots into the podcast as well. So we kind of have a bit of a, a nice team now with the Commish brand. And obviously we've been co-hosting, Sky, you and I for a while, and we have you on our podcast. So basically the point is that, wherever you turn on to the Commish brand, you're going to find some type of content from different perspectives, from different types of people. So whether it's myself, Alex, and Eric, and or, Kelly, Andrew on the writing side, Josh, Brian, and RJ for the Dynasty content, you're getting a lot of different types of work. And then most importantly, this has kind of been our baby since the beginning. And really, Josh has been really managing and co-heading the Playbook. So the Playbook is our weekly newsletter that's launched every year during the season. And we kind of spark it up during preseason leading into the season. But really, it's kind of the all hands on deck, quick notes that you need to kind of break down the week that just happened into the week that's about to happen. It's the best way to put it. So we give you all the injury updates, our starts and sits, things that you needed to know in case you missed any of the games, because unless you have Red Zone and you're able to watch every single game, you're probably not getting all the channels, right? And so we have plenty of people all over writing for us, and all of that kind of gets disseminated down into the Playbook, and that drops every Tuesday. So we always encourage everyone to go sign up at thecomishbrand.com. Go put your name in, email address at the Commish. Again, thecomishbrand.com at the Playbook, and you'll get that every Tuesday.
It's so awesome, man. And again, everybody go sign up. I rep it every time. I rep it when these guys are on and when they're not. Make sure to go get it. It's a great piece of content that you can check out every single week. Helps you with waivers off the bat, and then Chris ran down everything else. But it's just another avenue, another quick read. Takes maybe 10, 15 minutes to get through everything. A lot of great readers and writers, and of course with the podcast there as well. Also, I just finished up this week's episode. Shouts out to Alex and Dez on the Commish bets. I put one down every once in a while, but it's very entertaining. Those guys are obviously great friends for a long time. So it's a fun listen, and it's also informational. So shouts out to everybody on the squad. And again, big up to our man, Josh McDonough, for filling in the big shoes last week. But hopefully, barring any setbacks, Chris and I will be doing this episode every single week the rest of the season. We've been doing it this is our third season doing this one, man.
It is, man, yeah.
Really, really excited about that. So, all right, let's dive in here. We're going to get into the Thursday night recap. After that, we're going to get into the week 3 breakdown of all the games. I did send that doc over to you, so you can find that while we get through Thursday night and open it up here. So we're on the same page, literally. So some basics here for Thursday Night Football. Obviously, the lead is Christian McCaffrey. We'll get to that in a second. Carolina 3-0, a big win over the Texans. I know it doesn't feel like a big win because it's the Texans, but nonetheless, let's not forget the Panthers were a struggling franchise for a handful of years since Cam Newton was not Cam Newton since about 15-16. So they've had their own struggles as well. Panthers win here 24-29 in Houston. Carolina 3-0 for the first time since that Super Bowl season in 2015. I'm going to run through about everything here, and then we'll come back to CMC. Christian McCaffrey out with a hamstring strain. Sam Darnold, 304 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 2 300-plus yard passing games so far this year for Carolina. 2 of 3 games have been over 300 yards. 4 total with the Jets in 38 career games. The Adam Gase effect is real. Then you had DJ Moore, huge game, 8 catches, 126 on 12 targets. Clearly the number one. Last year it felt like it was Robbie Anderson. Not anymore. 1 catch, 8 yards on 2 targets. Chuba Hubbard comes in, 11 carries, 52 yards, 3 catches, 27 yards in relief. My man Royce Freeman also gets a little bit of work as well. I want to know how much fab you'd spend on either one of those guys. And then on the other side, Davis Mills, rookie out of Stanford, gets his NFL debut, 168-1. Brandon Cooks, unbelievable, 9 for 112 on 11 targets. The rest of these running backs were unusable. So we'll start with CMC and work our way in here. Christian McCaffrey, real quick, man. I mean, first overall pick the last 3 years, probably will be next year, depending on how he bounces back the rest of the season. Last year, he had a similar issue, a couple different injuries. He would be out a few weeks. Then you'd play him. He would blow up for 30 points. He'd get hurt again. You pull him back out. Are you trying to trade for, trade away, hold on to, pick up, Hubbard and Royce Freeman? Let's go with the running back situation with Christian McCaffrey first, and we'll move on.
Yeah. I feel like these injuries are unrelated to each other, but I feel like they're all just happening, and so it's really hard to know exactly what the issue is with Christian McCaffrey at the moment. If I had Christian, I have 0 shares of Christian McCaffrey, so this is not plaguing me in any particular way, unfortunately, because I wish I had Christian McCaffrey. I feel like that'd be a good problem to have, but in a sense, it's not a good problem to have because you are banking on your number 1 draft pick being there and putting up the points that you expect Christian McCaffrey to put up. And so you are now left with decisions. So the decisions are, do you hold him? Do you trade him? Do you trade for him? If you don't have him, if I'm a Christian McCaffrey owner, I'm holding at the moment because as far as I understand, the hamstring issue is about maybe 2 to 3 weeks out. It could be lingering. I mean, these type 2 types of muscle injuries tend to plague players, especially running backs and wide receivers, for much longer than we anticipate or we like to hope for. But every time Christian McCaffrey steps on the field, barring he doesn't get taken out, he puts up 25 to 30 points. So my guess is that they're not going to rush him. They're 3-0 this season, so they're winning. And if they continue to win, then there's no real need to rush him back, which means if you do hold him, you'll probably get him as a healthy Christian McCaffrey. And we've seen guys come back and they play fine, right? So I think you hold him. If you can trade for him and, consider that a buy low and you can stash him and you can afford that, then go for it. I mean, if you can make that move and you're able to, provide some weapons in return, then go for it. But, most people with Christian McCaffrey right now are willing to, most likely are willing to hold him and wait the 2 to 3 weeks to see what the diagnosis is.
Right. And it's going to be, obviously, if you're looking to acquire him, it's still going to be hefty. Thankfully, he did avoid the IR, which is ideal, right? So the chance of him coming back in a week or two is great. He might go on the IR in the next couple of days, but so far he has not. Quickly, Chris, before we move on here, Chuba Hubbard, Royce Freeman, both going to be big-time waiver wire pickups. Obviously, Chuba Hubbard more so, rookie out of Oklahoma State. My boy Royce Freeman, who's been buried in Denver for 3 years, but I saw him play for the Ducks. Of course, I'm biased, but dominated the Pac-12, led the nation in rushing. The dude's legit, can catch the passes as well. He got minimal work last night, but did have a nice run. Are you looking to acquire either one of these guys? If so, how much fab for each one of them?
Yeah, Chuba is definitely the guy that I think I'm looking to go all in on if I can. If I'm in a position where, say I'm 1-1 in the week, if it's a head-to-head situation or you're playing all points and you're like kind of in the middle of the pack, and you have fab to spend, I'm spending majority of my money on Chuba Hubbard this week if he's available. And the reason is because, one, he's going to help you likely lift yourself into contention over the next couple of weeks with Christian McCaffrey being out. Two, if CMC, Christian McCaffrey, continues to be out, guess who's now the guy? It's going to be Chuba Hubbard. I know Royce Freeman's still there, Sky, but just on the usage of last week, I mean, they had they could have used Royce Freeman in that capacity, but they went with Hubbard most of the game. So it seems like Hubbard's their go-to guy, and he did just fine. Like, I thought he played very well last night. So Hubbard would be the guy that I feel most comfortable with.
He did. Again, 14 total touches for 79 total yards for Hubbard. And I just want my boy Royce to work out, but he is obviously the distant second. Quick note here before we move on. Coming up for the Panthers at Dallas versus Philadelphia versus Minnesota, at New York Giants, at the Falcons, and then against your Patriots over the next 5 or 6 games. If they could at least split the difference on that and end up 6-3 or so heading into week 10, 11, and then a bye in week 13, I think they'd be looking okay. So no real rush, in my opinion, to get Christian McCaffrey back.
Agreed.
All right, let's move on here, man. We got the week 3 matchups going on here, and this is kind of week 5, week 6 is kind of that point where you're like, uh-oh, my team's 0-4, my team's 0-5, I'm 1-4, I'm 1-3. Like, uh-oh. There's a lot of squads right now who are 0-2. Mm-hmm. And we're going to keep saying this the next few weeks. Don't panic. I kind of famously talk about the first year of the TCK pod in 2018, 19, I think. I started 0-4, had a bunch of injuries, made a couple trades, made a couple waiver pickups, had a couple guys work out, ran the table, ran the next 9 games in a row, made the playoffs. I ended up losing in the championship, but I made it all the way there after making a couple runs. So it is doable. Only 0-2, no big deal. But we need to start turning the page here on these squads as well. And of course, we do have some big players inactive this week that we need to get into. So let's turn it on here. We're going to start with the Bears and the Browns. The Browns coming in here with a 7-point favorite, over under 45.5. Justin Fields making his NFL debut. Odell Beckham Jr. probable should be playing. He's not on the final injury report this week, so that leads me to believe he will be active, but we'll have to wait until Sunday. Jarvis Landry missing his first game ever as a pro due to injury specifically. He'll be out for the next couple of weeks there. How do you feel about the Bears and the Browns, man? There's a lot of kind of question marks, I think, with like Allen Robinson getting a lot of work but dropping a touchdown. Darnell Mooney, will he see the uptick with Justin Fields? The run game obviously is going to dominate for the Browns and probably the Bears as well. But with Landry out, where do we think that ball is going to go around there for Cleveland?
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts. I'll start with the Browns just briefly. I am excited to watch the Browns every time they step on the field now. I want them to be the wrecking ball that they look to be. They could easily be a 2-0 team right now, and I expect them to continue to be a menace for teams moving forward. Between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt at the moment, they look awesome. That offensive line is as advertised. So I'm very excited to keep watching the Browns. I think the Bears are about to enter into a buzzsaw. Unfortunately, I think the Browns end up going 2-1 after this week. Here's my thoughts on the Bears. They were my early offensive fade of the entire season. So I wrote an article, fade the Bears. I actually said fade the 49ers, so we'll talk about them in a little bit. But fade the Bears until Fields got onto the field. Now we're going to get Fields. I think he's starting this week. Andy Dalton, is he in or out confirmed?
Andy Dalton's out. Justin Fields is the man.
Exactly. So I'm a little bit nervous with the cadence of this entire offense. Like, for example, their defense had a monster game against the Bengals, right? They still only managed to put up 20 points. That's a bad sign for a team with decent weapons. I'm not sure that Fields is going to make all that much of a difference in his first week in the NFL. So in my opinion, I'm fading all Bears, maybe start David Montgomery, but that's it. I almost think you fade Allen Robinson. He had 11 targets, then 4 targets. He's not the target monster that or at least right now that he is. And I don't see the Bears wanting to throw the ball that much this week. That's my take.
Fair enough. I mean, that's 2 tough fades there with Demont and Allen Robinson. I'm still good with both of those guys. I just think the offense is going to have to run that way. And even if the Browns are run heavy, I think they score points in this one. And I don't think it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a slog fest here. But yep. I think both teams are going to score at least 3 touchdowns in this one. So I'm going to go with either of those. And you know, I wouldn't do it in a single quarterback league yet, but in a super flex or 2 QB, I would absolutely be comfortable with Justin Fields playing so far. Chris, we haven't done it yet because we're a little tardy on the season, just with some personal stuff with you, and it just took us a while to get going. But we're 3 weeks in. Let's get it started now. Quick pick, straight up. We're not doing spreads. We'll let Alex and Dez do that on commish bets, but we'll just do a straight up pick 'em here. Bears or Browns? Browns at home.
I'm picking the Browns at home, definitely.
Cleveland Browns at home, and I am going to do the same. All right, let's move on here to the Washington football team and the Buffalo Bills. Bills are the favorite here, 7.5, over under 45.5. Buffalo has won 7 of 8 against the Washington football team. Terry McLaurin most likely going to draw Trey White. Trey White is legit against everybody. We saw a huge game from Terry McLaurin with 11 targets last week. Anyone other than Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen are you comfortable with on the Bills? And Antonio Gibson, are you comfortable with Antonio Gibson moving forward here? He's been off to a slow start as well.
Yeah, so Cole Beasley, I think, would be the only flex start that I might be comfortable with, depending on how deep your league is. The Washington football team didn't look particularly good against the New York football Giants. I know that the Giants are a juggernaut right now, and Danny Dimes is quarterback 5 overall. But that being said, the football team didn't look particularly good, and I'm a little bit nervous that they're going to have a tough time guarding the Buffalo Bills this week, and that includes Cole Beasley. So if I need to, I feel comfortable starting Cole Beasley this week. I think he sees a lot of targets. And then I think the upside of what we saw Daniel Jones do from a rushing perspective against the football team is what you're probably going to see a little bit from Josh Allen, which is going to loosen up coverage for the receivers. So I expect Diggs and Beasley to have both big games. Singletary is an interesting situation. That's Josh's sit of the week in the playbook. So he actually wrote and he acknowledged that Singletary has had 2 consecutive weeks that have been strong. He's controlled 66% of the starting snaps in both of those starts. He did get vultured on touchdowns from Zach Moss. He is a little bit nervous overall with the Washington football team likely coming back to form on defense because they had that extra couple of days rest. So unless Singletary scores, he thinks you're going to have a disappointing stat line from Singletary. So that's Josh's sit for the week. Let's move on to the Washington football team. Obviously, fine with playing McLaurin. He's as versatile as it gets as a wide receiver. Then it becomes the conversation between Gibson and McKissick. Alex has Gibson as the sit this week. And this is an ongoing problem between him and Eric. Eric has Gibson in the home league, and Eric loves Gibson. I also like Gibson a lot. I don't have a problem with Gibson. Gibson's averaging 5.2 yards on the ground at the moment. He's just not getting a lot of proper usage from a game plan perspective. And I don't know if it's because the Washington football team was down last game and they put in McKissick to, for pass protection, for third downs, and kind of brought him back to that role that he was on last year, that third down role. But Gibson wasn't utilized the way you would expect Gibson to be utilized. So he's Alex's sit. And I am uncomfortable sitting him, but I mean, if you need to and you have better options, go for it. I personally wouldn't be comfortable sitting Gibson. I also think if you have McKissick, I think the football team's going to be playing from behind again this week. So you might see a lot of passing work again out of McKissick. So he could be a good flex start for you.
All right. Give me a pick on this one. Bills football team.
I'm going to go with the Bills.
Oh, Bills. All right, let's move on here to the Ravens and the Lions. Ravens coming in 8-point favorites at home here. On the road. 50 over under. Detroit has allowed 30-plus points in 8 straight games. Looking good for the Ravens here. Goff leads the NFL in pass attempts. Lamar has bruised ribs from a flip into the end zone. Of course, you hate to see that, but it is what it is. He should be fine. Tyson Williams, I think, has a great matchup in this one. Hollywood Brown, questionable coming in, but he should play. Mark Andrews should break out. Hopefully, Robert Tonyan caught a touchdown on Monday night against these Lions here. And then you have Swift, Jamal, Hawkinson, and Cephas potentially for the Lions. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, so a couple of things in the Lions. My thoughts after watching them last week is so they're getting there, right, as a team. They're just not disciplined enough to put it together for 4 quarters. And I think the Packers essentially wore them out. And that's kind of why that's eventually what we saw at the end of the game, right? Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, and Aaron Rodgers effectively just, again, wore them out. And I think that's pretty much the sum of what the Lions put together. But they're talented. They looked great in the first half of the game. And I think that we're going to continue to see some progress here. So although they have a bad stretch of matchups, I do think the Ravens pulled this one off quite easily. Just the way that Aaron Jones kind of bullied them around effectively. I think the Ravens are going to do the same thing. Again, you should expect a lot out of Hollywood Brown. I think you should expect a lot out of obviously Lamar Jackson. Likely Mark Andrews. We saw TJ Hawkinson pretty much. We saw Tonyan have some action against the Lions. I think you'll see a lot from Mark Andrews this week. But mostly this is a Lamar type game. He had a stomach bug this week, but I think he'll be fine come Sunday. So overall, I think the Ravens pull this off, but I like the Lions and I like their progress. Quintez Cephas looks pretty good. I think you're going to see a little bit from Jared Goff. He'll continue to progress with this team. So positive on the Lions, but the Ravens win this one. And
the Ravens haven't been the Ravens quite yet, at least not on yet. Defense. They're definitely not as dominant as you think they would be. I like Tyson Williams here. Maybe a start of the week potentially. I think they're going to be up big early, and when they are, they're going to run the clock out, and that's going to be Tyson Williams, and Latavius Murray probably gets a 2-yard touchdown, but the volume will be there with Tyson Williams.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on here to the Colts and Titans. Also, quick digression. I see some of you piling into the comment section here. We will get to some of your questions after a few more games here, but please remember, most of our start sits will be directed to Sunday morning right here on YouTube 3 hours before kickoff. So I know a lot of you are starting to time in here with start sits. We'll get to as many as we can with Chris at the end here, but please also come around Sunday morning when we have designated time for those. We appreciate it. Okay, Colts and Titans. Titans here are the 5-point 5-point favorite at home, 48 over under. The Colts have won 8 of 9 of the last 9 games at Tennessee. So the Colts have won 8 of 9 games on the road in Tennessee. That's a really interesting stat there. Carson Wentz questionable with 2 sprained ankles, but back to practice Friday. Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, I think, could have big games in this one. Do we trust Michael Pittman? 8 for 123 on 12 targets last week. Derrick Henry, obviously an auto start. Do you trust Ryan Tannehill, Julio Jones, or A.J. Brown in this one, Chris?
Yeah, I think it depends for Pittman on the Colts side if Wentz is playing or not. I kind of chalked it up that Jacob Eason was going to play just because of. I mean, I just don't see how. I mean, Wentz is basically on stilts. Like, how I don't understand how he's going to play. He's got 2 broken legs pretty much. So I mean, Mazel tov if he plays. But Pittman. My overall note is fade the Colts. That's what I have here. If you have to play Pittman as a flex start, then go for it. He obviously has upside that we just saw this week, so that's good. Other than that, other than like JT and maybe Naheem Hines, like I think they're gonna struggle a little bit against the Titans this week. I think wheels up on the Titans overall. AJB, Julio, Henry, Tannehill, the usual suspects. I think you got to play them all. With that said, though, Sky, I have a question for you in terms of a start/sit, if you don't mind.
Do it.
We had an Instagram person come to the Commish page, and he asked, and I think this is a keeper league because I don't understand how you get all these wide receivers all at the same time. But he already played DJ Moore on our recommendation, but he needs to play too. AJ Brown, Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin. Who do you sit?
Sit McLaurin. I love McLaurin. He's probably going to get the most targets, but Trey White's legit, and I'm worried about that. So I'm going to roll the dice with Ridley and AJ Brown to do what they should.
Okay. So in other words, you feel pretty good that AJ Brown gets back to form this week?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on here to the Chiefs and the Chargers. 3.5 point favorite here for the Chiefs. I think this is going to be a very interesting game here. We'll get to our pick in just a second here. Oh, Chris, who do you have on the Colts and the Titans?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Titans.
All right. Likewise. 54.5 over under. This is going to be a massive game. A lot of bombshells here. Obviously, Alex is a big Herbert and Charger fan like myself. I expect them to come out swinging here. The Chiefs, again, upset by the Ravens, if you want to call it that, should have been beaten by the Browns. I mean, the Chiefs are literally like 2 or 3 plays away from 0-2, straight up. And the Chargers are not going to be a walkover either. They're healthy on defense for the first time in years right now. We'll see what happens there. So how do we feel? I mean, you start your studs, of course, with the Chiefs. But how do you feel about CEH, right?
Yeah.
It's a guy you and I talked about a lot in the preseason. Obviously has not come through yet. And then with the Chargers, you think Herbert just needs to have a couple less penalties, less turnovers in the red zone. I think they're going to be fine. Eckler's an auto. Allen's an auto. Mike Williams has been on fire. 2 touchdowns so far for him. So I think there's a lot of fireworks for fantasy in this game.
Yeah. So yeah, let's dive right into CEH here. I know what it's like now for Joe Mixon truthers to defend Joe Mixon. So I'm a CEH truther.
Yes.
I think. All right. So let's unpack this a little bit. People want to say he's not a good running back, and I can see where they're coming from. He has not been quite effective. I don't know if it's because of an injury. Edwin Porras on Twitter, our guy, is really kind of our notable medical doctor, or I should say, he's not a orthopedist. He's a physical therapist, I think. Doctor in physical therapy. Yes, that's right. So Edwin Porras over on Twitter, doctor, basically is potentially looking at possible injury-related issues because CEH is not being as effective as we would expect a running back of his stature and caliber to be. Now, the other issue that I have with CEH at the moment is he's being vultured in the red zone, which is a giant problem. Other people want to suggest that, he's not a good goal line back. And I can point to plenty of times where they used him quite effectively in the red zone last season, and he was just fine. So this, not much has changed. If anything, he's probably a better goal line back this season. They're not scheming for CEH. And as I think I'm getting to the point where as long as Mahomes is under center, they just don't value that position as much as we would like them to, even with a player like CEH. And that's just it. There's no, I don't think there's another storyline or another narrative to posit other than with Mahomes under center, they will use the running back position sparingly and only when needed to mix up the throwing options so they're not just statically throwing the ball all the time. Otherwise, there's no reason to use a running back when you have Mahomes under center. The dude is just lights out every game. He's as consistent as it gets. So, yeah, I'm nervous about CEH. He's actually my sit of the week, although I'm still pulling for him. I think everyone needs to be patient. If you have him, hold him because you're not going to get much for him if you're trying to trade him. And let's see if we get consistency out of the running back position and more specifically how they scheme for him moving forward. Right now, they're not using him in the passing game. They're not using him in the red zone. Those are 2 huge problems CEH is facing right now. I will say this, though. Last point is if you did get CEH, hopefully he's your running back 2, maybe 3. He's my running back 3. So although he's killing me, he's not killing my team. So that's kind of the caveat to CEH at this point. You didn't waste a first-round draft pick on him like you did last year.
Yep, that's huge. Last year it stung so much more because of the top 7 running back or so he was going off of. Like that was a crush. High. This year is about a 3rd-round pick, so you might be able to get away from it. Chris, you got the Chiefs or the Chargers?
Dude, this is a tough one actually. From a game standpoint, the matchup to watch is going to be Travis Kelsey versus Derwin James. Of the safeties in the NFL, Derwin James is the only guy that can man up with Travis Kelsey on snap to snap, and he's been doing that pretty effectively. So I want to take the upset, but I'm not going to because they are playing in KC. So I'm going to take the Chiefs on this one, but I think it'll be close.
Deal. Kansas City. For Chris, I am going to go with the upset. I'll go with the Chargers.
All right.
Okay, let's talk about your Patriots here. We'll go Saints, Patriots. Saints dominated the Packers in week 1. They get absolutely embarrassed in week 2. Which version of Jameis are we going to get? 30 fantasy points in week 1, 6 fantasy points last week. Do you trust him at New England? You got to play Alvin Kamara, I guess, but he's another one that hasn't been up to standards yet, although he is seeing a career high in rush attempt percentage and target percentage as well. So he is that entire offense. It just hasn't quite clicked for him yet. Any other New Orleans pass catchers for you? And then would you rather start Damian Harris as the bull or James White out of the backfield? Both guys have been quite effective so far. And then Myers, Aguilar, or any of these pass catchers there for the tight end. Patriots 3-point favorite at home.
All right, so I'll start with the Pats, and you kind of asked this question earlier, so my overall take on the Patriots. It's funny, me, Alex, and Eric were watching them this week, and we all collectively agree they are a boring-ass team to watch on TV. So that's first and foremost. They have a game manager with Mac Jones. They're looking to win football games, which is fine, and I appreciate the approach because it's like circa Tom Brady 2002. Like
right.
This is how he operated, and a lot of people forget like how game managerial Tom Brady was, and he basically got labeled with that narrative for the longest time, and unfortunately that's what Mac Jones has now on him. So Mac Jones is a game manager. Of the players, I think you start James White and Damian Harris. I'm assuming you don't have both of them on your team. If you have one or the other, I think you start both of them. James White looks like James White of old right now. I mean, he had a great game. Even if you take away the touchdown, he probably still had you close to 12, 13 points, which is not bad for a flex position. And they're using him in the passing game. So that's where James White makes his money. And Damian Harris right now is just running all over the place. So I think you start both of them. I'm not comfortable playing any of the receivers if you have better options. But if you do have one better than the other, I guess Jacoby Myers would be my guy. The Saints. I literally wrote down your guess is as good as mine at this point. I have no idea. I don't think we've ever seen like in normal sense, we would say, okay, they're going to rebound with Drew Brees, but obviously Drew Brees is no longer there. So here's the positive I wrote for Jameis Winston. I feel like he operates like a good Major League Baseball player, which is you don't get caught up in your last at bat. I feel like he's got a forgetful memory, which is actually his best quality. He doesn't like put much stock into what's happened in the past, and he just keeps on chugging along. And after a performance like that, you kind of need that as a quarterback. So I actually feel pretty good about starting Jameis. I do have him in my big money league, and I am starting him. So the Patriots defense looked pretty good, but clearly Jameis is efficient in the red zone when he wants to be. And he can put up, 30 points on 158 yards with 5 touchdowns, and that's possible. So I think you start Jameis Winston in a 2 QB league. Let me preface that in a 2 QB league.
Fair enough. You got your Pats at home, or are you going with the Saints?
Yeah, good question. I'll take the Pats. I'll take the Pats at home.
Perfect. All right, let's move on here. Falcons and Giants. Giants 3-point home favorites behind MVP runner, I'm sure, Daniel Jones here. We'll get to that in just a second. Falcons have allowed 40 points per game this year. That's by far the worst in the NFL. Just 2 games, but nonetheless, they've been smoked in both of them. Do we trust Matt Ryan? Do we trust Mike Davis, Cordero Patterson in the mix? We just talked about Ridley and Pitts. I think those guys are autos just with the ability that they have and the upside. Pitts is getting the work. We just haven't seen the boom game that could happen any given week, and we know Ridley's capable of doing it. Daniel Jones, QB6 on the season. Do you trust Saquon Barkley yet? Last week, 84% of the snaps. We have Shepard, Galladay, a lot of options here, but I'm not as excited about this game as I thought I would be. Daniel Jones is good for me as a streamer or a second quarterback, and then Ridley and Pitts are auto for me. I'm sitting everybody else personally.
Yeah, the only guy that I think I like to start this week is Mike Davis. Just with the lack of running backs right now in the NFL, like if you have James Robinson, he ain't performing very well. If you had CMC, not there. There are other guys that we can probably name off that maybe Mike Davis would be a start this week. Look, the New York Giants defense is playing pretty well. They're actually ranked as the 13th overall graded defense in the NFL right now, according to PFF. So they're playing pretty well. And the offense, dude, they're just beating themselves. I don't know what else to say. It ain't Daniel Jones' fault. It's definitely not Sterling Shepard's fault. It's, Slayton. It's bad penalties. So if they can clean those things up, the Giants might be the best 0-2 team in the NFL as far as I'm concerned.
That's
so
fair.
Wheels up on Shepard. I think you have to start QB6 Daniel Dimes. You have to start, Kenny Galladay if he's not questionable. And this is the get right game for Saquon Barkley. So everyone that has Saquon that has been losing their minds, you obviously drafted him knowing that this is going to be a slow start. This is the game that everyone's been predicting that he's going to come back. So ideally, if he doesn't come back, you're probably a little nervous.
Yeah, I agree. So you're good with Saquon Barkley. I'm going to wait one more week. I also think that it's going to be a nice kind of a breakout, if you want to call it, for Saquon. I think the biggest thing that could help Saquon in this one is that for the last couple of years, the Falcons have traditionally been susceptible to the pass out of the backfield. And if they can get Saquon 5, 6, 7 passes out of the backfield to give him open space, let him determine how and when he gets hit and a little bit of open space, I think that's much better to get him than just ramming him behind a terrible offensive line against a decent run defense. So I like that if they use him that way. Otherwise, I'm going to continue to fade Saquon so far here. But your boy D Jones off to a great move, and we won't talk about it now, but we'll get through it over the season here as we monitor this. But we had an entire hour-and-a-half episode on your podcast about you and Josh debating Daniel Jones. And
right.
I think you set the line at 18, if I'm not mistaken. He's at QB6 so far. So far, so good for you. We'll see what happens with the Giants here. Are you going to roll with those Giants, or do the Falcons bounce back? This is a tough game because they're both 0-2. They both have looked horrendous and pretty good at the same time. I agree with you, though. The Giants look like the much better squad overall, but you don't know which version of Daniel Jones you're going to get.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. So I think if the Giants clean up their acts in a sense, like so they clean up the penalties, and if we do get the game that I think most people are expecting from Saquon, they will pull this one off. So I'm going to take the Giants.
All right. Likewise. Okay, let's move down here and let's start crushing these out here a little bit quicker. Bengals, Steelers. Steelers are a 3-point home favorite here, but I think this might be a sneaky trap game, I think here. 43.5 over under. Cincinnati 115-1 on the road since 2019. Of course, that pre-Joe Burrow when he got hurt last year, but nonetheless, pretty rough stat there. Worst by far in the NFL. Deontay Johnson out in this game. T. Higgins, doubtful. It's my boy T. Higgy, doubtful so far per this podcast, but by the time you hear this, he might be out as well. This could be a shootout, but I think it's also a trap game for Joe Mixon going up against the Steelers running defense, Joe Burrow going up against the Steelers passing defense, Big Ben overall without Deontay Johnson, and Najee Harris, I think, could have a big day if they ride him, but the Bengals have been sneaky good against the run so far in quick action. So usually if Deontay was healthy, T. Higgins was healthy, I think you fire up everybody and it's fireworks. Two of the best players on each team are out. I'm concerned about this game overall, and I'm actually might take the under in this one, even though it's still pretty low.
Yeah, dude, I completely agree with you. I wrote here, this might be a close game, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think the Steelers' passing offense does fine in terms of yards, but I don't think they score as much. The Bengals' defense hasn't been too bad from like a production standpoint. I know that they've given up some points and some yards, but they have 6 sacks. They have a fumble recovery, an interception in just 2 games. They don't look so bad. So with Deontay Johnson out, I don't know that I don't know if there's going to be a high scoring game. So I'm probably going to take the Steelers because it's the Bengals, but this might be like a 20-17 type of game.
I agree. 2017 or 2023, that's still going to give you the over with 43.5. So I'm going to take the under, in this game. Steelers are the favorite at home, Chris, but who do you have?
I'm going to take the Steelers. Again, I think they're just better than the Bengals. and they're playing at Pittsburgh. So I just don't think that the Bengals are quality enough to get that done.
I'm going to take an upset in this one.
All right.
I'm going to take an upset here and go with the Bungles. Okay, let's move on to the Cardinals and the Jaguars. The Cardinals are a big road favorite in this one, 7.5. You don't see a line like that very often on the road. 7.5 favorite here. 52 over under, one of the top 3 lines in the NFL this week. Jacksonville has lost 17 straight games dating back to last year. They won opening day, lost the rest of them. Of course, they win the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, but they've also gone down this week or the last 2 weeks, and 6 straight by 10 points or more. DeAndre Hopkins hasn't practiced yet this week. He's questionable. He has a tendency to do this, though, so I'm not terribly worried about him because I didn't see anything happen on Sunday, but monitor DeAndre Hopkins, of course. Rondale Moore has exploded, big-time waiver wire pickup this week. Christian Kirk, a couple of touchdowns so far. James Conner, not explosive, but could get, fourth quarter action if they're up big. James Robinson, 11 touches in week 1, 14 in week 2. No touchdowns, though. He's been a big-time bust for you. And then which Jacksonville receiver do you trust? Marvin Jones seems to be the guy, but fantasy still wants it to be Shenault, still wants it to be your boy Chark from a couple years ago. Who do you have in this game? I think there's a lot of fireworks. Some autos are obvious here. Kyler Murray, Hopkins if he plays. I think even Edmonds has a big game in this one. But how do you feel about the rest of these guys?
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said here. I don't have much to add other than it's going to be a lopsided game. I actually think you're going to see Chase Edmonds get actually more work than most people expect. So I would take Edmonds over Connor at this point. Yeah, Marvin Jones Jr. seems to be the alpha. We talked about this on our last episode at the Commish, and it's just not Shenault. So the only issue is that they're both on a terrible passing offense at the moment. Lawrence's 50% completion rate right now is coming in dead last among all quarterbacks with at least 2 starts, and it's just not looking good for this team from a passing perspective. So likely fading all Jaguars if I can in this game.
Arizona?
Yeah, I'm taking Arizona here.
All right. Got a quick question here. Is Uzi Vert, shouts out to our friend Uzi Vert here. I want to address this really quick. Taking lineup questions. A lot of you are jumping in the comments, and I appreciate it. Chris and I have a lot to get into still. We still have 5 or 6 games to get into for week 3, which we are going to. Then we're going to transition into our TCK Listener League, veteran and rookie roster breakdowns. These episodes will go longer. They're about an hour 15, hour 20 versus the usual hour until we have bye weeks. Addressing this, taking lineup questions, as I've said a couple of times. We might get to a couple at the end of this episode, so stick around. Sunday morning is when we break down all of our lineup questions. So make sure you join us on Sunday mornings, every single Sunday, as you can see here, live streaming on YouTube for our Start Sit Show, Fantasy Focus, TCK. We get that question, answer, assault going on. So make sure to hit us up on Sunday mornings. So we might get to a couple questions, Uzi, but please hold those for Sunday mornings there. All right, let's keep progressing here. We're going to the Jets and the Broncos. Broncos, big-time home favorite in this one, 10.5 points. The Jets have lost 11 straight in September, 4 picks from Zach Wilson against Uncle Bill and the Patriots. No real surprise there. Historically, Bill Belichick has destroyed rookie quarterbacks, especially. He did it to Tua last year twice, Josh Allen early on. So no surprise there, but 4 picks is rough. Teddy Bridgewater, QB 13 on the season so far, 592 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Cortland Sutton, shaky week 1, comes out as the clear number 1 in week 2, 9 catches on 159 yards on 12 targets. How do you feel about these running backs? Pretty much Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon have been 50-50 down the line. Melvin Gordon had the accidental 70-yard rushing touchdown a couple weeks ago, but they've been 50-50 otherwise. Corey Davis was great in preseason, great the first game. Bill Belichick eliminated him. Do you expect a bounce back from them? The Broncos have a great secondary.
Yeah, I actually don't in this game. I think the Jets' struggles continue just a little bit. They're definitely progressing, but they're just not quite there yet. I think the at Denver scenario is going to hurt them, I think, more than expected. So yeah, problem for the receivers. Of those receivers, I think Corey Davis will likely be the go-to guy again, as he has been in the past, especially in that week one game. So other than that, I do feel pretty comfortable with the Broncos team right now. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater is playing lights out. So I actually had him as a QB12, a QB13 doesn't, it's neither here or there. He's playing above where we are expecting him to play. He's definitely the upgrade on that team. And it is lifting everybody else up. So Cortland Sutton, wheels up on him as far as I'm concerned. Noah Fant, absolutely. And I honestly, I have Melvin Gordon in my work league, and I'm starting him. I am starting him with confidence. I don't have any worries there. So yeah, I mean, if you have the option to play the Broncos players here in this game, I think you go for it.
That's fine. It's just if Melvin Gordon doesn't score, he's probably around 10 fantasy points, which is fine for an RB2, RB3, depending the landscape with a couple guys injured. But again, just the upside's not there. Javonte will happen eventually. Keep holding tight. And you're going to go with the Broncos in this one.
Yes.
All right, let's move on here to the Dolphins and the Raiders. The Raiders, a 4-point home favorite, 44 over under. Pretty low, actually, considering this offense here. The Raiders come in at 2-0. Dolphins 1-1, but Tua is out in this game. 7 of 8 games have been won by the Dolphins over the Raiders over recent history here. Derek Carr playing out of his mind. I think an early MVP candidate. Josh Jacobs, questionable, doubtful, probably not going to play in this one. If he does, he might be limited. Kenyon Drake and Peyton Barber split work last week. I'll stay away from both of those guys, although Damian Harris and James White did well against the Dolphins last week. Henry Ruggs needs a deep touchdown to be beneficial. Brian Edwards needs the volume. You start Darren Waller on the other side with Jacoby Brissett. I'm not excited about literally anybody on the Dolphins. I don't think the Raiders defense is great, but they have a great pass rush. If anybody, this might actually be a Mike Gesicki game just with quick dump offs, but I can't trust him either. I'm actually fading all Dolphins, which might bite me, but I'm fading all Dolphins. And honestly, other than Derek Carr and Darren Waller, I don't know that I'm crazy about the Raiders either.
Okay, so I agree with everything you said. I am also fading all Dolphins right now, especially with Tua not playing. The Raiders defense is sneaky ranked or tied for 6th according to PFF in overall defense at the moment, and the Dolphins are ranked somewhere not where I can find them at the moment, but they're not very high. So actually, they are pretty high. Their defense is ranked 3rd, actually, as a matter of fact. That's why I couldn't find it because I was looking down. They're ranked 3rd in the NFL. So I agree with you on both takes here. Probably going to be a little bit more of a low-scoring game than we're used to, but I agree with you. Carr's playing lights out right now. The biggest characteristic change from last year to this year, in case you're wondering, is that they're not turning the ball over. Right now, they are tied for 3rd best in the NFL in turnover percentage at 4.2%. On the flip side, Miami is 12th worst in the NFL at 14.3%. So with no Tua, this actually might become more of a problem. You got to play Raiders defense if you're in a defensive type of league where you play defenses. Waller's going to be Waller. You have to play him. If you're in a deep league and you need like a Ruggs or a Renfro, I actually don't mind the start. But yeah, I mean, the Miami defense has been playing pretty good. So just be careful of that. Don't expect Ruggs to have another game like he had.
I 100% agree. And a sneaky defensive play there for the Raiders. Like, that's a great call. Dolphins, Raiders for NFL purposes.
I'll take the Raiders in this one.
All right. I am also sticking with the Raiders, man. Looking to go 3-0. How about the Raiders and the Panthers starting the season 3-0?
I love it.
Oh, man. Yep. All right. Let's get to some fireworks here, man. This one's going to be crazy either way. The Bucs and the Rams by 1.5, but this is basically a pick 'em 55.5 over under here. The tied for the second highest with the Seahawks and the Vikings. This one's going to be an intense game, man. Brady is playing like he's 28. I mean, are any of us surprised at this point? Chris Godwin seems to be the only one that's consistent. AB, a dud last week. Mike Evans, a dud in week 1. The running backs are okay. If you have to start any of them, it's probably Lenny Fournette for me, but I'll pass against the Rams. On the other side, Matt Stafford's playing really well. Cooper Kupp is playing out of his mind. Robert Woods hasn't come up yet, but that's going to even out eventually. Tyler Higbee might be sneaky in this one. And Darrell Henderson's playing well when he's healthy, but he's also beat up. Sony Michel, no thank you. Again, like, this should be start everybody, 10 to 15 options, maybe both DSTs. But to be honest, man, when I break this down, I'm really only excited about, like, I'll play Brady. I'm playing Stafford. I'm fading all running backs if I possibly can. If I have to pick one, I'm going to pick Leonard Fournette from the Rams. I'm starting Cooper Kupp. I'm flexing Woods if I have to, but I'll move off if I can. I'm playing Godwin, and I'm playing AB.
Yes.
If he plays, he's got the COVID issue and all that. If he plays, I'm playing AB because Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are going to get the 1 and 2. And then Gronk, of course, you play, and then maybe Higbee. But this one's really tough, man, as far as, like, not an auto start here.
In the second innings you still had a lot of pace bowlers that could have bowled Suresh Raina after what.
Sorry about that. Cut that out.
No worries. Yeah. So I was saying usually you have 10 to 15 options in this game. You got the kickers involved as well. I mean, this game's insane. But two incredible defenses here. How does that affect you?
Yeah. So all right. So I'm totally on the same page with you with everything you said. I am starting Chris Godwin and I am starting Antonio Brown with confidence. Mike Evans has routinely been the guy to get the number one cornerback in recent years, and he will likely end up with Jalen Ramsey. Now, if you need a start, obviously, if you're going to flex Mike Evans, you can actually do it with some level of confidence. Last season, when they played the LA Rams, he had Jalen Ramsey for 88% of his snap share, and he ended up ripping off for 5 receptions, 49 yards, which isn't a ton, but with 1 touchdown. So again, Brady still likes to go to Evans in the red zone. He's the largest target on the field.
Still 6'5".
Still 6'5", still gets up and jumps balls, and he still ended up with Jalen Ramsey and put up at least 15.9 points on against the Rams last season. So don't sit Mike Evans, but I think AB and Chris Godwin both have better games. On the flip side, yes, I agree with all of your starts and sits on the Rams. Sit all running backs in this game.
Pick them, man. You going with Brady in the Bucs or Stafford in the Rams?
Yeah, I'm going with the Bucs on this one.
All right, Bucs on the road. I'm going to go with the Rams here, and simply because they're at home, it doesn't matter for Brady, but in general, NFL team has to go literally all the way across the country. This is as far as you can go. From Tampa, Florida to LA, California is as far as you can go in the country, outside of maybe, Boston or New York to Seattle. So I'm going to take the Rams here in a squeezer. All right, we got 3 games left. Excuse me. We got the Seattle Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings come in at 0-2, Seahawks at 1-1. The Seahawks have won 6 straight versus Minnesota here, 1.5 favorite on the road. Again, same spread there for the Seahawks. Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett have been unbelievable. DK Metcalf has gotten the same target share, the same exact target share, just hasn't been able to do what Tyler Lockett is doing. So if anything, buy low on DK Metcalf. In my opinion, this could be his coming out party if you end up getting Patrick Peterson going on Lockett or so, Ashad Breeland ends up covering DK Metcalf, no chance. He's going to go nuts in this game. I like DK in DraftKings or FanDuel as well for DFS. And Chris Carson's going to be fine in this one as well. On the other side, if Dalvin Cook's healthy, you play him. If he's not, I'm playing Alexander Mattison as a top 20 running back. Kirk Cousins, you fire up in this one. Jefferson and Thielen, of course, as well. And I'll sit all the tight ends.
Yeah, fair enough. That all makes sense. I actually wrote here, I'm starting all available options in this game. I think you're going to see an offensive shootout here. The Vikings are playing for their life as far as I'm concerned. They do not want to fall behind to 0-3. That's a tough hole to get out of in that division. And the Seahawks are going to have to keep up, and they're going to air the ball out. So I think you're going to see a lot of offense in this game.
Awesome. I'm going to double back for 1 second because I just realized I skipped over a note I wanted to read. Somehow, Chris, 22 years, this is Tom Brady's first career game in Los Angeles.
Really? Interesting.
Does that even make sense?
No, it doesn't. But I guess
they didn't have teams forever, right? They had the Oakland Raiders and they had the St. Louis Rams and they had the San Diego Chargers.
Right, exactly.
I guess it does make sense, but that's just weird to read, right? Like,
yeah.
I feel like Brady's played a game in every city in the country. But all right, who are you going here? Seattle or Minnesota?
I'm actually going to take the upset. I'm going to take the Vikings at home. They're going to pull this one off.
All right, I like it. I'm going to stick with Seattle. Russ is cooking currently, and while he is, I'm eating it up. Let's go here with my Niners going up against the Packers. This one's going to be tough, man. I'm not as confident as I usually am in this game here. 3-point favorite here for the 49ers at home. 50 over under. Of course, we had week 1 Rodgers and then week 2 Rodgers. No surprise. Jimmy Garoppolo, meh, but the Niners are getting wins with 14 different running backs. Deebo Samuel's leading the league in receiving yards, but I think that falls off a cliff pretty short here. How do you feel about this game here? George Kittle hasn't popped off. Devontae Adams is an auto. Aaron Jones is an auto. Robert Tonyan could be a streamer, I guess, as well, but I'm fading Jimmy Garoppolo. And anybody that starts for the 49ers running backs, I'm going to fade.
Okay, yeah. So I'm actually a little bit more confident in the team, I think, than you are. But please correct me because I don't get them over there on the West Coast in order to watch them. So I'm only getting snippets of plays online that I'm watching here. But Deebo looks incredible, and I'm guessing it's because they're double teaming Kittle and Ayuk is for some reason in the doghouse, and Debo just eating right now. So I mean, unless they don't double Kittle at some point, which doesn't seem like a smart defensive strategy, I actually feel good about Debo. I think he continues to eat the way Ayuk ate last year, except he's just playing harder than Ayuk is. So I think this actually continues. I don't see the cliff in the sense that Debo will fall off of. But at the same time, I also feel pretty good about Jimmy G. Like if they keep winning, then I don't think there's a need to rush Trey Lance. So I think Jimmy's probably if you need to flex a quarterback, you know, depending on how deep your league is, maybe
super flex,
right? You don't probably need to start Jimmy, but he's not a terrible option right now. The Packers, you just play all the usual suspects, and I think that's pretty much where you live in the Packers.
All right, so I have to take my fan hat off here because everyone knows how I feel about Jimmy Garoppolo. Yes, he wins games. I don't think he's that good. Trey Lance would win the same games because Jimmy's not winning the games. The 49ers and Shanahan are winning the games.
Sure.
Trey would win the games and be more exciting. I digress. Deebo Samuel is awesome, and he's absolutely an animal when he's healthy. First of all, he's got to stay healthy. Secondly, yes, Brandon Ayuk has not yet come up, and he will sooner than later. I think Shanahan plays kind of this old school, like earn your spot thing, and I think Ayuk just dominated down the stretch with limited work from Deebo and Kittle and got the work in last year, and I think assumed he had a spot, and Shanahan was like, look, kid, you still got to, earn stripes, and he just hasn't so far, so that'll happen. The cliff I'm talking about won't necessarily be this week because Jair Alexander will cover Deebo a lot, but Deebo's, ADOT is like 3 yards, right? So it doesn't matter. It's all screens and end arounds and shit. So Jair's not going to take him out that much. It's like overall the next couple of games, as Ayuk comes in, as Kittle gets involved a little bit, as the running backs literally evaporate, you're going to have to pass more. That means more people are going to get the pie. And I just don't think Deebo is going to be that guy long term. For the running backs, if Trey Sermon comes in coming off of a concussion, even if he's healthy, I'm going to fade that. He had one carry, got hit in the head, fumbled the ball. He was out. We don't know what we have there. Elijah Mitchell is out in this game, or doubtful at least, might be out. Hasty is out in this game. They're picking guys off the street. XFL dudes are coming in to take snaps here. 49ers are a mess. I'm worried about them in this game. I'm going to pick them because I have to every single week, but I think I'm worried about the Packers running them out of the building because no two guys right now for the 49ers can cover Devontae Adams. That's a problem.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the Packers in terms of a pick'em type situation, but I actually did right here as well. It's going to be a huge test for both teams. So it'll be a good game to watch.
Me too. And should be a playoff game if everybody can stay healthy. Finally, let's get into the Eagles and the Cowboys here. Big Monday night showdown. Cowboys 4-point favorites at home, 51.5 over under. Now, this one's a big one. Of course, they're in the division here, and both these teams pretty much just tried to lose the division last year, and then Washington football team ends up getting it. 3 straight road losses by the Eagles to the Cowboys here, so that trends well for the Cowboy fans. Jalen Hurts is playing well. I'm excited to see him in prime time. I think he's going to be great in this game. I don't think anybody for Micah Parsons is that defense. I don't think they're going to have much in the secondary there. So I do expect a decent game for Quez Watkins, who's a way deep streamer, Jalen Reagor, of course, and Devonta Smith as well. Miles Sanders, you guys know how I feel about him, but you start him. And then I think, Kenny Gainwell, I'd fade as far as a start, but he's going to get some work out of the backfield. You start all of your Cowboys. And I think you can start Tony Pollard as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was just going to say Tony Pollard is quickly becoming the truth.
Yeah.
Dude is running back 11 right now in the season, just in 2 weeks. And it does seem like they're just going to continue to mix him in with Zeke. I don't think you'll ever see on the Cowboys Zeke being the backfield. It is now Tony Pollard's share, and that's just going to continue. So but other than that, I'm fine with all the weapons you talked about. And I do like the Eagles' options at the moment. Dallas is looking pretty decent on defense. They're not terrible. Definitely better than they have been in the past. They're ranked 6th in terms of overall grade from PFF at the moment, just slightly behind the Cardinals and the Saints. So overall, I like the options for this game. I think you're going to see a good divisional matchup. Eric and Alex tend to get a little bit nervous in divisional matchups. They never quite end up being sort of that fantasy gold mine that you expect. But I actually think this is going to be one that will be.
I agree. Who are you going with here, Dallas or Philadelphia?
I'll take Dallas in this one at home. I took a lot of the home teams today, so I'm going to continue with that.
All right. That usually is how it goes down. All right, Chris, we have done the week 3 games, and we are going to wrap up week 3 and, of course, the Thursday night pick 'em as well and get into some bonus coverage here and we will get into the TCK Listener League as well. So let's jump into some bonus coverage here. We got Chris Benevides of the Commish Fantasy Football Podcast. Chris, this is a fun episode that you and I have done over the last couple of years, and this really just has to pertain to our TCK listeners. So this is a long-time league we've been running here, and this is just something you and I want to put out and have fun with these guys and help set some of these rosters and help people out. And so again, if you're a listener who is onto the podcast but not in the league and you don't care about the TCK Listener League because you're not in it, totally fine. No problem. You could check out of this one. But if you would like to listen and just maybe this will help you out with some of your roster moves, then let's get into it. We'll go quickly here. Let me share my screen, and Chris will bring it up here. And then basically, like I said, man, I just want you to go through quick and let people know if there's any different starts or sits that you'd like it into here and help everybody out with our general roster settings. Let me get it up there for you. All right. We will start with the veteran league here and go down with the TCK Listener Veterans League. And again, veterans just means that these people have been in the league prior and they have earned their stripes to be up into this league. And the rookie league is just people who have been new to the league or have bumped down from the veteran league over the last year. So Chris will bring this up here. We'll start with mine because I just happen to be first in the queue. I'm going to read off the entire roster, and then you can let me know if I need any changes, and then we'll go to my opponent as well. Here we go. Ryan Tannehill. I had Christian McCaffrey, of course, 5 points before he went out, so I'll have to make that change next week. Tyson Williams, Tyler Boyd, DK Metcalf, Darren Waller, Kenyon Drake in my second flex, and Tom Brady in my super flex. And then I have the Cardinals defense going up against Jacksonville. Have a number of guys on the bench as well. But are there any other changes here you would make? I'm going with the Cardinals defense versus Jacksonville over the Rams defense versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Nope, I think that looks good. And I think did I see Josh Gordon down there?
Oh yeah.
Did you? Oh yeah, I like that pickup. Nice. Boom.
Little stack. Josh Gordon reinstated by the NFL this afternoon. So whenever he lands somewhere, I'm just going to put him on there. Why not? And if nothing else, he's a good clubhouse guy. I'm always rooting for him as a human being. I have also been through some similar situations that he has in life, and always rooting for him. So when he is available, he's on as many of my rosters as I can make happen. So you're good with my roster so far?
Like it, dude. Yep.
Okay, let's move on to Ulysses. Ulysses has Justin Herbert, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift. DJ Moore goes off for 16.5 PPR fantasy points. He has, Jamar Chase, Noah Fant, Marquise Brown, assuming he plays, Joe Burrow, and the Cleveland Browns defense. He has Jimmy G, Leonard Fournette on the bench. Brandon Cooks on the bench with 16 fantasy points, unfortunately. Kenny Golladay and the Colts defense as well. Any changes for Ulysses?
No, I think it's a good roster here. Unfortunate that he sat Cooks, but other than that, it looks pretty good. Yep. All
right. Let's move on to Dweez and Brady for Prez. Dweez up first here. Kirk Cousins, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Mike Evans, Justin Jefferson, Dallas Goedert, CeeDee Lamb, Jared Cook, Washington football team defense.
Yeah, I think he's got the best lineup there. No changes.
Darrell Henderson, the only one I might look to put in, but he's got Saquon, Nick Chubb. You can't take them out.
No, I don't think so. And I think his flex options with CeeDee Lamb and I mean that's the best lineup by far. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Brady for Prez here. He's got Rodgers, Kamara, Carson, Cordero Patterson, the running back slot. Then he has Mike Williams, TJ Hawkinson, Najee Harris, Justin Fields making the NFL debut, and the Ravens defense against the Lions. Carson Wentz on the bench, and Melvin Gordon out there as well, and AB also, but looks like AB is trending the wrong direction. Michael Pittman as well on the bench.
Yeah, so does AB have COVID? Is that what it is?
Yeah, AB tested positive for COVID, but he is vaccinated, so he has to have two negative tests before Sunday. That would be today and tomorrow. So he's trending the wrong way because it's so late in the week. But if he gets those, he technically could still be cleared. Again, per this episode, by the time we get off, he might be out. But that's where we're at right now.
Okay, so he's the only guy that I think I'd probably flex in there if I could. Other than that, the team looks pretty solid. It's a good team.
All right, let's move on to Hyde and Zeke and Jay Kerr. Both have been very busy on the trade block recently this last week with a monster. All right, we'll go Hyde and Zeke first. Teddy B, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Kyle Pitts, James Robinson, Jameis Winston, and the Patriots defense. Big Ben on the bench, and Darnell Mooney as well. Probably the only two to consider.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, Big Ben, he's got that hurt situation. We already talked about that game potentially being low scoring. Go with the upside with Jameis Winston. You never know. He could throw 3 touchdowns and beat the Pats. So
there you go. On the other side, Jay Care has Mahomes, Miles Sanders, Chase Edmonds, Nuke Hopkins, assuming that he plays, Keenan Allen, Rob Gronkowski, Deebo Samuel, Trevor Lawrence, and the Chargers defense against the Chiefs. I don't love that. Zach Wilson and George Kittle on the bench. George Kittle on the bench. Again, he is going with Rob Gronkowski over George Kittle as of right now.
Yeah, that's the age-old question. So
Gronk has 4 touchdowns in 2 games.
When does the Gronkowski train slow down? And so Eric and I and Alex talked about this in our last pod. It's like either the guy does not break the all-time touchdown record by 14 touchdowns or he slows down. So yeah, I guess you play him this week and just see what happens to George Kittle. I don't mind it. Keep riding the wave if that's going to give you the most points. Seems like he's in a must-win, so that's fine.
Okay, let's move on here. President Richard Mixon going up against the alternate here with Paul and Curly. Let's go with Russell Wilson, Joe Mixon, Mike Davis. Robbie Anderson had 1.3. Yikes. Julio Jones, Mark Andrews, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, of course, out. Josh Allen and the Panthers defense goes for about 14 fantasy points in this league. We have some bonuses and things. Mac Jones, Myles Gaskin, and Vikings or Tampa Bay defense. So 3 different defenses to go with here, but he went with Carolina there. So anyone else to swap out?
No, I think it's a good team. And I understand the play on Carolina. They've been playing lights out. So they didn't have the best game, but they did pretty good.
Okay, on the other side, Lamar Jackson, Zeke Elliott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Robert Woods, Tyler Lockett, Evan Ingram sighting, Marvin Jones, Jalen Hurts, and the Raiders going up against the Dolphins here. James Conner on the bench. Trey Sermon could see some action. Chase Claypool gets a big bump with Deontay Johnson out as well, but on the bench as of now.
Yeah, I think you got to swap Chase Claypool for probably CEH, but I understand why he's got him in there. He's probably holding out like I would. So if he can make that move, I probably would. I'd be more comfortable with Chase Claypool at the moment.
Okay, the only problem is he's got him as a running back. He doesn't have another running back to settle in there, so he would actually have to swap him out with a wide receiver, which it might have to be Marvin Jones or Robert Woods.
Probably Marvin Jones. I don't know that the Jaguars are going to have much success against the Cardinals, so that's fine.
Okay, let's move on here. 2 more matchups in this one, then we'll blaze through the rookie league. Lucas and Nosu for you. We'll go Lucas first. Matt Ryan, James White, Javonte Williams, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Tyler Higbee, Allen Robinson, Matt Stafford, and the Broncos defense. Looks like he's got his best roster in other than maybe Cortland Sutton, but with all those wide receivers, I'm not sure he has any room for him.
Yeah, it seems like that's the case. He had a crowded situation. Not a bad problem to have, but maybe want to make a trade or two as the season goes.
Y'all know Lucas is all about that 0 RB life, so he's got plenty of wide receivers. Yeah. Okay, let's go over to Nusso for you. We got Heineke against the Bills, Kareem Hunt, Aaron Jones, Adam Thielen, Calvin Ridley, Travis Kelsey, Sterling Shepard, who's been on fire, your boy Daniel Jones, and the Pittsburgh football Steelers going up against the Bungles. Anybody on the bench here? Cole Beasley, Odell Beckham, DJ Chark, and the 49ers defense going up against the Packers.
No, I think that's the best play at the moment. I mean, yeah, that lineup seems pretty good. I like the Daniel Jones, Sterling Shepard stack.
All right, let's move on here. Final one of the Veteran League, Hawk Dalladay and our boy Josh. So Hawk Dalladay going with Sam Darnold, had 22 points, so off to a good start there. Austin Eckler, Damian Harris, Cooper Kupp, Scary Terry McLaurin, Robert Tonyan, Amari Cooper, Derek Carr, and the Saints defense also has Baker Mayfield. Josh Jacobs is looking doubtful, unfortunately, here, and Henry Ruggs, so I'm not sure that he even has any room to swap anyone else out.
Yeah, I like the overall play. His team looks pretty solid. I think he's favored to win, so just keep riding that.
There you go. All right, let's move on to Josh's side here. Dak Prescott, Antonio Gibson, David Montgomery, Chris Godwin, Devontae Smith, Jonnu Smith, Rondale Moore, Kyler Murray, and the Bills defense. And that looks like his best roster as well, projection-wise.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Anytime you got Kyler and Dak on a team, could sneak something out. So not bad.
Yeah, great quarterback stack there. And of course, he has the Cardinals stack as well. All right, let's jump in here to the rookie division, and then we will get out of here. So for the rookie, we'll start with Drew Reb and Kelly. Want to give Kelly a shout out real quick, Chris?
Hell yeah. Kelly's our girl over at the Commish, contributes on the pod on occasion, and also is a contributor from the writing side. She is just a monster on Twitter. You have to go follow her at Kelly in Phoenix. We love her.
We love her too on the TCK. She came on this summer as well and talks about her Ravens as well. So shouts out to our girl Kelly. And she's going up against Drew Reb, who won the league a couple years ago, who has Jameis Winston, Latavius Murray, Alvin Kamara, Tyreek Hill, Adam Thielen, Robert Tonyan, Robert Woods, Teddy Bridgewater, and that Tampa Bay defense. And projection-wise, that looks like his best squad when we account for the bench. So let's move over to Kelly's side here. Daniel Jones, Zeke Elliott, Nick Chubb, Rondale Moore, Terry McLaurin, Mark Andrews. I always think I see A. Brown, and I still go to Antonio Brown every time. Every time. A.J. Brown, Derek Carr, and the 49ers here. She has a couple of nice bench pieces as well. Baker Mayfield, Damian Harris, Sterling Shepard, Tyler Higbee, and Washington football team defense. Kelly's looking stacked.
I know she is stacked, and she also has a great lineup at this up at the top here. So I don't know who you'd flex in. I mean, if I can get Sterling Shepard in somewhere, I probably would, but she looks pretty good. So
Sterling Shepard or Rondale Moore?
Probably, I feel like Shepard offers the safer floor right now, so I'd probably go with Shepard at this point. All
right, let's move on here to let's see here. Keeping up with the Joneses and our boy Juan Otts. All right, here Lamar Jackson, Tyson Williams, Aaron Jones, Julio Jones, Keenan Allen, Rob Gronkowski, Miles Sanders, Ryan Tannehill, and the Carolina defense puts up 13. Looks like that's the best squad on projections there. On the other side, Juan Otts goes with Matt Ryan, Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Kyle Pitts, Javonte Williams, Mac Jones, and the Browns defense. And Jacoby Myers, Darnell Mooney, and Devontae Smith look like some options there at wide receiver. But again, already has Devontae Adams and Deebo Samuel there, so it'd have to be a flex. Javonte Williams, Chris, or Myers, Mooney, or Smith.
Yeah, we talked about Javonte Williams kind of breaking out at some point. This might be a game that he does that. Like you kind of mentioned, Melvin Gordon is kind of touchdown dependent. I think Javonte Williams is the better running back. If it doesn't happen this week, he'll continue to progress as the year goes on. I think he'll end up being a top running back in the NFL by the end of the season. So just depends on when you want to play him. I probably would sit him this week, but I do like him as the season goes.
All right. Got it. Moving on here. Down the line. Oh, we're going to save this one for last. It's a marquee matchup to wrap us up here. All right, Weston going up against our girl Megatron all the way over in the UK. Weston has Taylor Heineke. Christian McCaffrey, of course, goes out. Unfortunately, just 5 points there. Mike Davis, DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks, 16 points. Darren Waller, Deontay Johnson in the lineup, but out, so he'll have to make that swap. Of course, let's help him fill that void there for a flex position. And then we have Chase Edmonds as well and the Ravens defense. So, Chris, we're looking at putting in Leonard Fournette, Will Fuller, or Hunter Henry, unless he grabs somebody off of waivers. So Fournette, Will Fuller, or Hunter Henry as that second flex option with Deontay Johnson out.
Give me Will Fuller. If he starts, and I know that Tua is not playing,
with
but
Jacoby Myers though.
I know, but I do think that Will Fuller offers that upside that you're probably going to need. Who would you go with?
I don't want to go with Leonard Fournette, but I might just because of the volume. And I think that when they get down there, Tom's not going to mess around. The Rams are going to double cover, I think, Gronk at this point. Lenny could fall in. I don't like him like volume wise because he's not going to get yardage against the Rams, but Tom will move the ball. And when he gets down there, it's going to be Fournette. So I think Fournette could have 45 yards and a touchdown, which I just think could be better than Will Fuller in his first game back with Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a good point.
All right. Now, that being said, it's Will Fuller and it's the Raiders. So he could be 2 for like 107 and 2 touchdowns, but I can't count on that. All right, Megatron. Rodgers, Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Pittman, Pat Freiermuth. Love that. The second tight end for the Steelers. I like that move. Chris Carson, Justin Fields, then the Colts. And Jimmy Garoppolo is an option potentially. Cole Beasley, DJ Chark, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Reagor even. There's a lot of good options here. But I think she's got the best squad in there. Although I'm not crazy about Michael Pittman if it's going to be Eason.
Yeah, I agree with you. Can you scroll down to the bench spots again? I just want to make sure I see them all. Yeah, Cole Beasley, I kind of mentioned. That's who I was thinking about. Cole Beasley, I think, would be a nice safe start. If you want some upside, I suppose you go with maybe Reagor. If he could see a touchdown, especially if Devonta Smith gets the number one over there over in Dallas. DJ Chark has looked pretty okay, not great, but I think he got a touchdown in week 1, so has some of that touchdown upside. He is the biggest wide receiver on the Jacksonville Jaguars, so could see something there.
Okay, let's move on here to Banta and Pelkey. Banta rolling out Mahomes. Elijah Mitchell in the lineup right now, but again, doubtful. So if he's out, you're going to have to make that switch. Antonio Gibson, Laviska Shenault, Allen Robinson, Logan Thomas, James Robinson, Russ Wilson, and the Broncos defense, a great streamer versus the Jets this week. Kenyon Drake, Myles Gaskin, Odell Beckham, Christian Kirk, Devontae Parker even. There's quite a bit of options here, but he's going to need a running back, which is going to probably be Myles Gaskin or Kenyon Drake, Chris.
Probably Kenyon Drake if Jacobs doesn't play is my guess. He played pretty well last week, so I like Drake.
I agree. Let's move over here to Pelkey. He's got Stafford, Saquon, Henderson, as of now, also questionable. Jawan Johnson playing in the wide receiver position. Love those cheat codes. Chase Claypool, Travis Kelsey, George Kittle, the double tight end move there. Joe Burrow and the Rams defense. Anybody else on the bench? It looks like Kareem Hunt might be the only option unless AB goes, but again, AB trending in the wrong direction. Would you squeeze in? It's going to be, this is a crazy conversation, but it's Darrell Henderson or Kareem Hunt?
Darrell Henderson or Kareem Hunt? Probably Kareem Hunt, I think.
Yeah,
I don't like playing running backs against the Bucs, so I'd probably go with Kareem Hunt. He's always money for like 10 points, which might be all you need to out of that position. So
if he scores and what should be a route, then you could end up with 20 plus.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. He's just always like a lock for a decent game. Even if Chubb runs for 100 yards, he's still good.
I agree. All right, a couple more here. Now, this is a marquee matchup. So this is Bobby's team in the rookie league. This is also Jordan's team in the rookie league. So the two co-hosts of the TCK pod here going up against each other. Jordan so far 2-0. Bobby 1-1. We'll go with Bobby's team first. Dak Prescott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Melvin Gordon, DJ Moore went for 16.5. Cooper Kupp, Max XX Williams, Amari Cooper, Josh Allen, Raiders defense. Sam Darnold on the bench, unfortunately. Trey Sermon, Marvin Jones, his boy Tyler Boyd on the bench. Any swaps there for Bobby?
Boyd might be an interesting start. Does he?
T. Higgins is probably out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Boyd would be an interesting start, but you can't sit Cooper Kupp. You can't sit Amari Cooper.
Can't sit Josh Allen.
Can't sit.
Already played DJ Moore.
Yep, and then you got Gordon and CH in your running back spot. So I think Boyd's the odd man out. It's probably the best lineup he has.
All right, let's move over to Jordan's squad here. Kyler Murray, James White, David Montgomery, Calvin Ridley, Stephon Diggs, TJ Hawkinson, Tyler Lockett, Kirk Cousins, and the Cardinals defense versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's got Carson Wentz on the bench. We'll see if he even plays. James Conner, Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, and KJ Osborne as well. Mike Williams and Cortland Sutton. Let's see if we can squeeze them in. Got to play Kirk Cousins in the super flex. You got to play Tyler Lockett. You got to play Stephon Diggs, and you got to play Calvin Ridley. Probably not.
Dude, it's wild. I'm afraid to play this person. So they're freaking stacked. How do you? And I love the flex to put James. I mean like flex, not like in the flex position, but
like a flex, yeah,
like a flex with your muscles to put James White up at the top of your running back slot. It's ballsy.
I love it, absolutely love it. All right, let's move down here, and this is the final matchup of this week here, and we have your team going up against our boy Brock Funk. Brock is rolling out Brady, Naheem Hines, Derrick Henry, who could have 300 against the Colts this week, so careful there.
Yeah,
Mike Evans, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Gesicki, DK Metcalf, Jared Goff, and the Bills defense. Hollywood Brown on the bench. Steelers defense versus the Bungles on the bench as well. At a good sportsmanship, Chris, is this his best lineup, or would you swap anybody in?
I think it is. Hollywood Brown's been playing pretty well, but you can't sit him for DK. I mean, maybe Juju.
What about Evans?
I know. This is where the boys become men. I don't know. Hollywood Brown's been playing good, but Evans can pop off. If anything, I think I'd probably sit Juju
with Johnson out though.
Yeah,
this could just be like 15 targets for Juju.
It could be. I just don't love that game this week. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of the overall Cincinnati versus Steelers game.
Yikes!
Tough play. I can't. I don't know that I'm serious. I don't know if I can help him.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, let's go to your squad here, man. We'll get out of here. Sure. Herbert, Kamara, Swift, Godwin, Justin Jefferson, Fant, Jamar Chase, Jalen Hurts, and the Patriots. Of course, you think this is your best roster, so let me just scan quickly. Kenny Golladay, I'm not high on anyway, but let me just make sure here. I want Chase, especially if Higgins is out. Definitely Hurts in the Superflex. And then Godwin and Jefferson, of course. Swift and Kamara, boom. If Swift misses somehow, Tony Pollard's an easy fix, or Alexander Madison. You play Madison if Cook's out. If they're both in, you go with Pollard there. You feel good about your team this week. You're 2-0 so far, so looking good.
I'm working my way back into the Veterans League. I'm just trying not to get kicked out of the TCK universe.
My man, I love it. All right, Chris. So that was the TCK recap and preview of week 3. And of course, again, Chris and I are going to be doing those every single week here. Now, this is a bonus podcast. We just went through our week 3 matchups and everything. So dial back on that one if you want to catch all those in the week. Christian McCaffrey news and all that from Thursday Night Football. Chris, spend 2 more minutes here with you while we got you. We got a bunch of people in here. And look, I got to say, man, this is your first episode. I want to give a shout out to our long time here, our boy Victor. Chris has won the fans over already. I love to hear that. So let me blast through a couple things here, some Q&A. Again, folks, catch us Sunday morning for all your start sits. I'm in a good mood. Chris's debut here with the Fantasy Focus Squad, so we'll go overtime a little bit. Chris, I'm going to blast through these. Let's get your opinions here really quick. Our boy Fragger, shouts out to Fragger, big-time supporter here. I think this is just a comment. My brother was telling me that Alvin Kamara sucks, and he would rather have David Montgomery. So I made a trade, and now I have CMC, Chris Carson, Antonio Gibson, and Alvin Kamara. Even with CMC out, this is an absolute roster. Shouts out to Chris here, who giving me a shouts out on the Josh Gordon pickup. Josh Gordon for the win. What do you two think of the potential return to the team? Look, there's nothing to talk about yet. He's a distant practice squad guy. He's got to work his way back. He's in great shape, but he's got to get in NFL shape. I'm going to hold comments on this until he actually makes a roster and we have a real discussion. Reese Thomas comes in. Pick 3, Chris. Pick 3. A lot of wide receivers here. If you guys don't tell us what format it is, we're going to assume half PPR. Please tell us. Full, standard, half, whatever it is, let us know. Pick 3, Chris. Half PPR for default. Scary Terry, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, Robert Woods, and Rondale Moore.
I'm actually going to go with your first 3. I think Terry McLaurin, we talked about him a bit earlier. He's just too versatile to end up with one guy on him at the entire game. They're going to scheme to get him the ball. He might end up with like 13, 14 targets. So I like him. Okay, so wait, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on the same team. So who do you go with? You got to go with Keenan Allen, but Mike Williams is eating as well. So
you can play both.
You could play both.
The Chiefs, it's going to be a shootout.
Yeah, if you want to, go for it. It will be a shootout. So a lot of offensive points going there. I think the Chargers keep up with the Chiefs. So if you do need a flex, then go with Sutton. He'd be my 4th option only because Robert Woods is playing the Bucs and I don't love that. So and then Rondale Moore, he's a rookie, so I'm buying the hype, but I'm not buying him above these other established wide receivers.
I'm going to go with Allen, Williams, and Sutton, although Rondale Moore could have a big second half if they're up big on the Jags and they want to take him out, take Nuke Hopkins out and just get him some rest or whatever. It could be Rondale Moore, but I'll go with Allen, Williams, and Sutton there. Thanks a lot, Reese. Okay, here we go here. Being honest, Abe. Trey Sermon or Tony Pollard? I'm out Darrell Henderson Jr. and Elijah Mitchell. So assuming Henderson's totally out, Elijah Mitchell's totally out, do we go Sermon, who had 1 carry, fumbled, got a concussion, cleared concussion protocol, comes in against the 49ers, against the Packers, or do you go with Tony Pollard, who's obviously the number 2, but he's actually significantly better in fantasy than Zeke so far?
He is way better than Zeke in fantasy. You got to go with Pollard right now.
I agree. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I do agree there. All right, let's get back in. Chris, also say the Chargers close game. Oh, this is during our pick'ems. I appreciate that. We got to Uzi Vert. Once again, Uzi, please jump in on Sunday. Mowgli, shouts out to Mowgli here. Who would you start at QB? Standard, PPR, Prescott, or Carr?
Who?
Prescott, Monday Night Football.
Yeah, probably Prescott. He's got the established he's more the established quarterback with record and history of throwing the ball a lot. It's like, this is like the best way to put it. Like, he throws the ball, he's more likely to throw for 400 yards than not. So
I am going to go with Dak Prescott as well. Derek Carr going up against that what do you say, 5th, Chris? 5th best defense, I think, overall, according to PFF, the Miami Dolphins. So
you're the 3rd best.
3rd best, excuse me. So, yeah, I think Carr could come back down to earth this week. I do like Dak Prescott there. All right, another Trey Sermon question, or proclamation, rather, from Streak. Trey Sermon to the moon. Mark my words. I will, and we'll come back to that next week there. All right, again, Victor, Sky holding it down. Appreciate the praise, my man. Get your question in here. Big Ben and Slayton offered to me for Waddle Superflex, yay or nay? Big Ben and Slayton for Jalen Waddle and Superflex, Chris.
Depends on what you need. If you need a quarterback, I think Big Ben is always around the QB 15, 16 mark every season. He finishes right there. So if you're struggling in the quarterback spot, then go for it, especially if it's a Superflex league. I think Slayton, Darius Slayton, he's not terrible, especially if Galladay doesn't play or is injured for any particular reason. Dude just needs to catch his friggin' touchdown. So if he gets it, then fine. Waddle without Tua, I'm just nervous about. I'm nervous about Waddle without Tua. So I'd probably take it.
I totally agree. I would go that way. And I imagine if Big Ben's in the mix, then a quarterback was discussed. So Victor, go ahead. Also, can we get a shout out for the Legends going 5 days a week? That's right, 5 days a week here on the TCK pod and on the Fantasy Focus Squad. We also got your start sit Sunday mornings. And again, I'm telling you, go check out the Commish Fantasy Football Podcast with our boy Chris here and all the other folks as well. They're going heavy with a couple different segments as well. TS, Juju, Hollywood, Pittman Jr., or Hunt, flex PPR.
So I'm assuming you pick one, right? Probably Hollywood or Hunt. But man, you talked about Juju, so now I'm thinking about that in terms of Deontay being out. So maybe Juju is the play here.
I'm going to go Juju with the play. I think this is going to be a shootout with these teams, at least up and down the field. We'll see what's scoring. But Juju could have 15 targets this one. Hollywood, questionable. We don't know what Pittman's going to do if it's Eason. And Hunt could be explosive or just that 10 points. So Juju gives me a floor and upside there. Victor back in it. Chris, again, won the fans over. Appreciate you. All right. Rolando, do you guys think JT will play good even without Wentz? I'll just jump in here quickly. Will he play well? Sure. I mean, he's very talented, but honestly, it's just going to be about a workload with him. If Wentz doesn't come in, he could have 20-plus targets in this one. But against Tennessee, could be like a running game shootout, so it could be just JT and Henry there. So, yes, I would play JT this week, and I think he'll be just fine. Agreed. And finally, what's good? Should I go with Jamar Chase or Tyson Williams at flex? Jamar Chase up against the Steelers with probably T. Higgins out, and then Tyson Williams going up against the Lions, who are giving up 30-plus NFL points per week.
Yeah, you got to go with Tyson, I think, right now. The Lions are they're like, you can run a fucking Mack truck through that goddamn defense. So
I agree.
Yeah, it's Tyson, although, I mean, if you can afford to play Chase, then I would also play both if you can.
I agree. That is a brief start sit that gives you an idea. Again, everybody, thank you for tuning in, giving us some questions, keeping us busy here. Huge thanks, of course, to our boy Christopher Benevides. And Chris, before you get out of here, please, again, remind everybody where they can find all of your guys' content with the playbook and the podcast and everything else. You guys are doing a great job. And you and I are at this every single week.
Yeah, man, appreciate it always being on, and I'm very excited to be back on and doing this every week, as you mentioned. So, yeah, anybody else that wants to check over or the Commish content, you can go find us on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, all the notable places to find podcasts. You can also check us out on our website, www.thecommishbrand.com. The playbook is on there. The sign up is at the bottom of the page. You can go ahead and sign up for the playbook. And then also at the Commish FFP, and you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter.
Fantastic, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And Giants going for their 100th win. Love to see that. Red Sox hoping to make that wild card slot. You and I and the boys had a little friendly wager at the beginning of the baseball season. We'll get into that later on. But both squads looking just fine. Yo, man, happy homecoming.
Thanks,
shouts out to you and the missus as well. I hope you guys get snugged in there. Expect a couple jerseys there behind you before too long when you get settled in. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you for everyone tuning in. Of course, this episode and all episodes are brought to you by Believe Podcast Network, Bet Online, and Play Action Pools. You hear it in the intro. Go check out all those promo codes. We'll be with you Sunday morning, 3 hours before kickoff. Once again, hit us up. 3 hours streaming live right here on Fantasy Focused Network on YouTube. Find me on Twitter at Sky Guasco. Find the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast anywhere you listen to the Believe Podcast Network. For my man Christopher Benevides and the entire Commish Fantasy Football Podcast family, I'm your host, Sky Guasco, and we